Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we're talking about Handmaid's Tale Season 4, Episode 8. And this season is going by fast. And I guess the direction that the show is taking, especially as we near the end, is to turn June into a much darker character. And you see that in the first few minutes. So the episode starts off, she's cutting her hair, this music is playing, and I know some of y'all like the musical choices, but sometimes I feel like I'm in a Starbucks when these songs play. But anyway, so June is pissed. And after her confrontation with Serena, this is not making her feel better. And so she's really trying to find her footing in a place that, should feel familiar. She should feel very at home, but everything and everybody just feels foreign. And you see that in the support group. So they're all kind of surrounding her. Her testimony is close, right? And they're like, are you nervous? Are you scared to see Serena and Fred? What's going on in your head? And she sits there and she says, you know what? I'm not nervous. I can't wait. And she really wants this confrontation. She really wants the world to know what happened to her. And so she's sitting there and she's really she's in a whole mood, right? And the thing is, when you contrast June with everybody else, it's different, right? All these other women, they kind of come together and they want to move on, right? They're kind of done with this. And you see that with Emily's character, right? She's tired, she's frustrated, she doesn't even know if she wants to go back to work or if she can go back to work. She really just wants to put this behind her. And June won't let her, right? June wants, not only is she angry, she wants everybody to mirror her anger, right? And she gets an opportunity when this woman comes into their support group. So their support group ends, this woman comes kind of wandering in, and we're all looking at her and we were very confused. And she's kind of latching on to Emily and she's like, please, we need to talk, we need to do this and that. And, everybody's freaked out. They're like, who is this lady? And we find out that she was an Aunt Irene. And this was somebody that inflicted a lot of pain on Emily. And when June finds that out, she just snaps, right? And this aunt, this was a plot hole, in my opinion. How did she get into the country? Also, if she really felt guilty, why wouldn't she ask for asylum and, testify against Fred and Serena? That, they probably could have offered her some type of immunity. So I was confused as to how she got into the country. But then again, at this point, it is what it is. And so June is just looking at Emily disgusted. She's like, how dare, you need to be pissed. Who is this woman? Why? She's trying to get Emily into the mood, but Emily's not everybody's like you. Some of us are trying to heal and this is not helping her, And again, Emily's torn. She's been through hell and back and she's not feeling it. And the divide between June and her family is it's getting stark, right? Between Moira, between Luke, it is just getting bigger and bigger. And you see that not just with Emily, but in every interaction, right? They kind of intervene. They're like, why are you talking to Emily this way? Stop this. And the thing is, watching everybody kind of help Emily and try to talk to June, it's clear that June wants control because she feels like everything's out of her control, right? And you see it with this conversation she has with Luke about Hannah. So Luke kind of brings up the fact that he was talking to Mark about this lake house and, anything else you can remember. And June goes off. She's like, why did you tell him? I wasn't ready to tell him. What are you doing? And Luke is just shocked. He's looking at her and I really felt for Luke. I kind of went back and forth with him because at times I was a little bit frustrated with him, but at the same time, I understood his perspective. And he has to balance two things, right? He wants to support his wife, but at the same time, their daughter is still there. So he can't wait, right? He can't just, he has to keep that in mind and do everything that he can. So as much as he wants to accommodate June, he has to prioritize Hannah as well. And they need all the information they can get. And so they're having this conversation and June goes off, she's pissed. And Luke and Moira have a conversation and Luke pretty much says the same thing that we're all thinking. He doesn't know what she wants, right? He's trying to give it to her, but he doesn't know. And he's, shook and he feels a little bit almost scared around his wife. That's the sense you get, a little bit nervous around her, he's walking on eggshells. He tells her time and time again that he's there for her, but he's not sensing, he's sensing that things are getting worse. And during this conversation, you can see that June was overhearing it. And again, June is she's trying to keep a tough exterior, but deep down, she's she's crumbling a bit. So this lead up to this testimony, you can feel the pressure that June has, not only to tell the world what happened and, you know, confront these people, but also to find, or at least start to find, some type of peace of mind. And as we know, like, Gilead doesn't care, Serena and Fred really don't care. So before the testimony, you see them talking. And I will say this about Fred, like, at least he stands by his nonsense. Like, he, as far as he's concerned, he did nothing wrong. He thinks everything is, you know, they are on the right side of history, whereas Serena is only with him because she has no choice, right? Like, she really has to stand by her man, because if she doesn't, she's probably not going to raise her child, right? Like, this is the only hope that she has, which is to work with Fred. So we get to this testimony, and there's a few things to note. First, Luke shows up, and when I saw Luke, I was a bit confused. I was like, are you sure you want to come? Because she told him explicitly, like, please don't come. And I both was frustrated, but I understood, because it is his business, right? Like, he has to know everything, because at the end of the day, like, that's the only way that, not only that he can help his wife, but possibly find a way to find, you know, help their daughter as well. So, and especially after how the last episode ended, like, clearly things are much worse than he anticipated. And again, he's kind of in a weird blind spot. And so he was kind of pushed to the edge. So in that regards, I could understand why he kind of broke his promise and came. So she gets up there and she testifies. And, you know, we're getting all these big moments that we've been waiting for. And I have such mixed emotions about them. So we get to June's testimony, and she just spills the beans, right? Like, she tells them everything. She says how Fred basically used religion to justify his torture, all the things she had been through, Serena's part in it. She goes into detail about Commander Lawrence, about what happened there. And, you know, she just lays it all out, right? And at the end, she says, you know, please give him the maximum sentence. Like, this man is scum of the earth, essentially. And the way they shot this scene, it was a bit jarring at times, right? Because first she was looking away from the camera, and then she was looking towards the camera. So you guys tell me if you like that. It kind of threw me off a bit. Like, I was just like, some of these artistic choices are a bit, like, I get what they're trying to do, but sometimes it can kind of take you back. And so the defense comes and basically says, you know, you're an adulteress, you chose to be a handmaid, and anyone with any sense knows that, like, this is not something you choose. And so one of the biggest moments in the scene is, you know, Fred goes off. And again, honestly, at least Fred knows he's evil. You know, at least Fred stands by his BS, whereas Serena's sitting there and she's looking at Fred like, please, like, I really don't want to go to jail with you. And Fred says a lot of things, right? He says, you know what? He basically uses Serena's pregnancy to justify everything that he's done. And he even goes as far as saying that, you know, he showed kindness, and the fact that June has 2 daughters is proof that Gilead works. And again, Fred is in no man's land. Like, he's in the deep end. I don't even know why they're having a trial. Like, just send him to jail. He's out of his mind. And I think something about Fred's outburst, I guess, triggered people watching this case, because after they walked out, like, they had supporters, and I was really confused as to all these people supporting Serena. I was also really confused as to who gave Serena that outfit, but it seems like they got some type of support. Like, for a minute, I'm like, did they leave Gilead? Did they leave Canada? Like, are we still in the same country? Because we haven't seen them have support until now, so I thought that was a bit strange to add that in there. So I was just really thrown off. And again, initially I thought they were like protesters, and then you hear them cheering. So I guess this image, or whatever sort of propaganda that Fred and Serena are plotting, is working. And so this is a bit of a disaster. And so, you know, this confrontation ends, and, you know, June is shook, and once again it leaves her feeling kind of in this state of, like, uncertainty. And she's just pissed, right? So she goes back to the support group, and everybody's clapping, and everybody's like, good job, June, like, great, you know, like, how did it feel? Like, are you okay? And what does June do? She drags in Aunt Irene. And this was such a peculiar scene, especially after testifying. So she drags in Aunt Irene to basically shame her in front of the group, right? Like, basically kind of force Emily to confront her abuser. And she violated so many boundaries with this. And again, June is turning into a much darker character. She's starting to get a following. And so this confrontation between Aunt Irene and Emily was just jarring, right? Like, she's asking for forgiveness. She basically says to Emily, like, I'm so sorry for everything I did. And Emily's shook. Emily's like, listen, your sorries, they're not going to do anything for me, right? And Emily's a character that I wish they had developed more, because from what we saw of her, she was a good character, you know, and then they kind of backtracked on her as soon as she crossed into Canada. But she's been dealing with a lot of things, and it would have been nice to see those things, especially, like, you get snippets, right? Like, you know, she'd been dating, she's trying to get her job back. Who knows how long this aunt has been harassing her? Like, this is stuff that we should have seen, I feel like, and it would have honestly made the story a lot more interesting. So they kind of threw this at us, like, out of nowhere. And so this confrontation ends really, really badly. And so following this group therapy or, you know, group shaming session, June goes home to Luke, and they're having this very awkward dinner session. And June is just, she has a smile on her face, right? Like, she's like, she has her cult following, you know, she wants revenge, you know, like, she wants power, right? Like, she is not here for any of these people. And Luke is just broken, right? And he's crying. He's like, I'm here for you. And this scene was a lot, because here's Luke kind of pouring his heart out. He now he knows everything. He wants to talk about it. Like, again, he's in a weird place. Like, it's hard for me to judge Luke, because he's trying his best, but it's like, how do you navigate through this? And then June has the audacity to try and have sex with this man again. And you could tell he's just turned off. Like, he's like, lady, I don't want to touch you. Like, I am traumatized from the last time you touched me. And I think Luke is, again, a little bit, I'm not going to say afraid of June, but like, he doesn't know what to expect, right? And so for her to just pounce on him, like, you know, for him, it's a sign that, like, things are spiraling and they're going downhill quite quickly. And so after this group therapy session, that Aunt Irene killed herself. And man, like, this was the beginning of the end, right? So we kind of come back full circle. We get back to this group therapy session. And at first it turns into this kind of like silent, like, Emily, are you okay? To all the former handmaids going, you know, if my aunt was here, or if my commander was here, I would do all these sadistic things to him. And, you know, June is sitting there like, hell yeah, brother. Like, yeah. Like, come on. And then she looks at Emily and says, why don't we let Emily tell us how she feels? And there's something quite authoritative about that, because, and Emily just looks at her kind of terrified. And I got the sense that Emily told June what she wanted to hear, because that's clearly not how she felt, right? Because sadly, this aunt that died, like, she could have been a good witness. Don't know how she bypassed security, but that's whatever. It is what it is. And Emily's sitting there like, okay, like, just kind of telling June, because June just, now she has this cult following, right? Like, they're all surrounding her. They're all like, you know, like, we're going to stay an extra hour. And again, the contrast between June and Moira, right? Like, Moira is a very calming presence. And she was, you know, the more sensible head in this. She's like, okay, guys, like, you need to, like, this anger isn't going to make anyone feel better. And she's right about that. And June looks at her like, you're dismissed, right? Like, get your butt out of here. And I was like, June. And I guess that's the direction we're taking in the end of the episode. So before I talk about Janine and Lydia, like, I have a lot to say about that, but this ending was very peculiar, because June comes home and she basically says, Luke, I want to tell you about the last time I saw Hannah. And I'm not really sure what made her kind of finally open up to him. And I think maybe the reason that June feels very, you know, like she's kind of going off is because the last time she saw her daughter, like, her daughter was afraid of her. And maybe in seeing her daughter look at her that way, June kind of sees herself differently, right? Like, she doesn't really, she's trying to kind of, you know, have this persona and, you know, let's like let the anger consume us, because she doesn't really want to deal with the fact that her own daughter is afraid of her. And so maybe that's where this anger is coming from. So I'm curious to see, like, how in telling Luke this will change things, and also what Luke will do with that information, because at this point he has no choice, right? Like, even if June says don't tell anyone, like, he any information they have, they gotta tell the authorities, right? Like, because they're kind of running out of time here. And I guess that's the direction we're taking with June. I think it'll end very badly. I'm not sure how I feel about this direction because it just seems like kind of counterproductive a little bit. Like, I think they're doing it to kind of prolong the seasons, you know what I mean? Like, because this is like a whole new storyline that we honestly probably don't need. But anyways, speaking of storylines we don't need, Aunt Lydia and Janine. So Janine is alive and well, praise be, you know, like, God bless, all those things. And I was happy to see Janine, but again, I feel like the show is too seasoned for them to have kind of left it up until this point to tell us. Before I talk about Janine, let's talk about Aunt Lydia. So we see Aunt Lydia, she has her job back, and she's not happy, right? And she kind of gets in trouble with Commander Lawrence when she kind of zaps a handmaid and then zaps another aunt. And Commander Lawrence calls her in and says, hey, like, what is your problem? You know, like, it must kill you that June escaped. Like, he's basically like kind of egging her on, being like how angry are you? And Aunt Lydia is like, no, I'm not angry, blah, blah, blah. And Aunt Lydia is a peculiar character, and we'll get to that in a second. So Commander Lawrence basically drops the fact that Janine is alive. They captured her. And again, like, seeing Janine was shocking because I think the show is like way too seasoned to have left it up until this point to tell us that Janine was alive. Like, they probably should have showed us the capture. Like it would have been a nice contrast to see June kind of, especially in that episode where Moira finds June, like kind of seeing what happened to Janine. And like, it was kind of out of nowhere. So I have a problem with this lead up. But Commander Lawrence says, hey, if you want to torture somebody, like, you need to go ahead and torture Janine. Like, this is somebody who deserves it. Like, you cannot be zapping whoever you like. And Aunt Lydia looks shocked, you know. She's trying to defend Janine. She's like, this girl was led astray, you know, help her. Like, this is not her. Like, you know. And Commander Lawrence is like, this was your responsibility. You messed up. The fact that you're still alive is a miracle to him and to the audience. And so Aunt Lydia goes to see Janine. And this confrontation between Aunt Lydia and Janine is peculiar for a lot of reasons because I don't think there's a purpose to Aunt Lydia's character anymore. And I'll tell you why. So in terms of Aunt Lydia's relationship to Janine, they have built it. Like, there is kind of a fondness that she has for Janine, and that I believe. The problem with Aunt Lydia's character is, aside from Janine, she has no fondness for anybody else, right? Like, there's only so many times we can watch her zap a handmaid. And there's just no character development, you know, like, she's somebody who's trying to find purpose and meaning, and being an aunt is like the thing that she holds on to. And it's like, we kind of recycle the same storyline when it comes to Lydia, to the point where there's no need for her. Like, she should have been killed off a long time ago, and they haven't really done anything with her character. And the thing is, there's nothing redeemable about her. Like, every time she comes on camera, I want to punch her in the face. Like, I don't even care. Like, maybe she'll save Janine, maybe she'll find it in her heart to do so, but it's too far gone, you know, and there wasn't enough sort of moments of humanity with Aunt Lydia for us to really take her seriously. And you see that in this conversation. So she's looking at her and she's trying to convince Janine that it was June that led you astray. June abandoned you. She didn't take you with her. Like, really trying to fill Janine's head with nonsense. And Janine is just like, thank God she made it. Like, at least one of us made it. Like, Janine the optimist. You know, again, like, Janine is one of those characters that I wish, like, they would have developed more, you know? And so she's ecstatic, as we all are. And, you know, Lydia is just, she can't believe she's seeing Janine, right? And it's to the point where she hugs her, right? Like, she hugs her like she's her daughter. You know, like, I'm going to take care of you. And Janine's only request is, please don't make me a handmaid again. Like, kill me, leave me here, but do not make me a handmaid. And, you know, Aunt Lydia just sees this as, like, it's not an option. And Janine's face says it all in that hug, right? She just looks at Aunt Lydia like she's just stone-faced, because she knows that in the end, Aunt Lydia will get her wish. But again, like, I had a problem with this scene because I just don't think Aunt Lydia is a useful character. And seeing Janine's face just kind of confirmed that. Like, girl, why are you still here? Lydia, again, is one of those characters, like, she's such a staple character, but they just refuse to do away with her. And initially, it did work, kind of having this person that really believes in what they're doing. But the more we see of Aunt Lydia, you see that she's as confused as we are. You know, it's like, girl, what is your purpose? And so I'm not sure. I really hope they don't use this as a moment to kind of redeem Aunt Lydia, because I just feel like that would be really cheap and unnecessary. Like, she's not a redeemable character, and therefore she shouldn't be around. So either keep her evil, or I don't know what they're going to do with her, but I'm curious to see how the season ends. I have a feeling that Janine will make it to Canada, but the question is how. And so yeah, you guys let me know what you think, and until next time.
Love.